This is the Four Wheel Parts Down and Dirty Show Off-Road Edition, powered by Polaris RZR. We're taking it back to the roots, getting dirty and covering all things off-road, because pavement, well, that's for it's gloves off, in your face, on the edge, and the way off-road should be. We're your definitive source for all things dirt.
4WP is more than a store. We're truck and Jeep experts and have been for over 50 years. From wheel and tire upgrades to full custom builds, 4WP has you covered. Whether you want to order the best parts online or shop in store, do the work yourself, or get it done by a pro, all roads lead to 4WP. Do your rig right. Shop online or find your store at 4WP.com.
Welcome to the Four Wheel Parts Down and Dirty Show Off-Road Edition, powered by Polaris RZR. Thank you for joining me on episode number 3. First couple episodes. Hopefully you guys have gone back and listened to those. But this one we've got today, this episode of the Four Wheel Parts Down and Dirty Show, I got to tell you, this is one I've been wanting to do for a very, very long time. I've interviewed my good friend Ryan Arciero quite a bit in the past. I mean, we're talking 10, 15 minutes here and there for national spots and, just catching up on race results and things like that. But this dude has a story that is just remarkable. I mean, we grew up very much the same, knee-deep in off-road. His family's got IndyCar roots. He's tried pavement racing. He's, and he keeps coming back to off-road. He's been with factory teams. He's gone to Dakar. Just really, really excited to do this interview with Ryan Arciero today. I gotta warn you, hopefully you guys have some time booked, because Ryan and I talk for about an hour and 15 minutes. A very lengthy interview, but if you are a fan of off-road, this is the type of interview you guys have been waiting for. We talk everything from the industry to his career to Dakar to what's next, sponsorship. I don't know. We are across the board talking about Volkswagen factory programs, in-flight fueling for trophy trucks that him and Mark Miller debuted back in the early 2000s. Just how the industry has morphed and shifted. Old school days, what the future holds. Man, it is one hell of an interview with Ryan Arciero. So if this is the first episode you're tuning into, I got to tell you, you guys are in for a treat with this one. So, thank you guys. Please go over to iTunes, hit the subscribe button to the Down and Dirty Show feed. Also, check out my other show, Project Action. I've got 2 Down and Dirty shows dropping every week, one on off-road only on Wednesdays, brought to you by Four Wheel Parts. I've got my national show on Tuesdays for all motorsports that is, brought to you by Polaris RZR. So make sure and check those out. Follow me at Jim Beaver 15 on social media. And before we jump into things, definitely check out my friends at Four Wheel Parts. But, I want to mention I've got some good friends at MyMedic. If you go to mymedic.com and use the coupon code Jim Beaver, it'll get you 15% off the best first aid kits on the market. And if you're looking for some training, head over to dirtfish.com, Dirtfish Rally School. You can get 15% off by using the coupon code JBDirtfish on any classes up there at Dirtfish Rally School. And, we've had a lot of off-road news in the past week. I covered most of it on the national show, chimed in on Dakar Rally, going to Saudi Arabia. So if you missed those headlines and Lucas Oil coverage and just some badass interviews, make sure and check out my other show that dropped yesterday, the Down and Dirty Show, powered by Polaris RZR, the national edition, available same places that you can get the Four Wheel Parts podcast here that we're doing. But we are going to take a short commercial break, and when we come out of that, man, it is like an hour and 15 minutes uncut with Ryan Arciero. You guys don't want to miss it. You want extreme performance, reliability, and the most fun you can have on 4 wheels? The Polaris RZR brings it to you. But you don't need to take my word for it. You can take theirs.
I'm Tanner Faust, and I choose the Polaris RZR because it's the most fun you can have with a steering wheel.
What's up? I'm Ronnie Renner, and I choose Polaris RZR because it's the sickest, most reliable side-by-side on the planet.
What's up, everybody? Heavy D from Diesel Brothers. Listen, I'm on Team RZR because it's hands down the best piece of machinery on the planet.
I'm RJ Anderson, and I choose Polaris RZR because it's the most fun, most capable machine.
Action sports stars, TV personalities, and some of the best race car drivers in the world all choose Polaris RZR because it's the ultimate combination of power, suspension, agility, and fun. Find out more information on the web at PolarisRZR.com or follow at Polaris RZR on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and use the hashtag RZRLife to share your story. When looking for a new wheel for your off-road vehicle, car, truck, or UTV, the choice is easy. You choose what the pros use. Rob McCachran, Keegan Kincaid, and myself, Jim Beaver, all exclusively use Vision Wheel, whether we're dominating Baja, taking the cup at Crandon, or shredding UTVs. Vision Wheel's trend-setting designs and durability will set you apart from the competition and your friends. Check out visionwheel.com or at Vision Wheel on social media to learn more. Anywhere is possible. It's more than just a slogan. Anywhere is possible with General Tire's wide variety of tires for whatever it is that you drive. Whether you're looking for off-road capability balanced with impressive on-road performance or ultra-high performance offering all-season traction designed with a driving enthusiast in mind, General Tire has what you need to get where you're going. General Tire, providing anywhere is possible with a Down and Dirty radio show since 2012. Do you race or are you a weekend warrior? Have you checked on the date on your helmet recently? Don't get caught off guard by using an outdated helmet. Impact Racing, the leader in motorsport safety, has new SA 2015 helmets to fit your budget. Whether you're looking for a helmet with a full carbon fiber shell to take you to victory at the Indy 500 or just looking for some helmets for a weekend at Glamis, Impact Racing has a helmet for you. Find out more information at impactraceproducts.com or on Facebook at Impact Safety. Hey, this is Jim Beaver, host of the Down and Dirty Radio Show. Getting down and dirty on the racetrack is all fun and games until it's time to get the dirt off. I know it all too well, which is why I partnered with MotoShield Pro, the leaders in nanotechnology solutions on the racetrack and in off-road to combat mud and dirt buildup on my vehicles. MotoShield Pro keeps us from taking unnecessary damage and spending extra energy on cleaning. No matter the weather or the surface, having proper protection on all my vehicles saves me plenty of reprep time in a sport where every second counts. Prep your vehicle like a pro. Learn more at MotoShieldPro.com.
Life is all about sound. The sound of sports. The sound of the racetrack. And the sound of your vehicle. Don't drive around listening to this. Drive around listening to the sound of performance. Gibson Performance. Gibson Performance Exhaust is the company who can turn this into this. Remember that life is all about sound, and Gibson Exhaust is the sound of performance. Check out your next catback exhaust system, headers, muffler, or UTV exhaust at GibsonPerformance.com and get more power and more sound.
Looking to have some fun on four wheels? Dirtfish Rally School has you covered. Packing as much adrenaline and adventure as you can handle into high-performance all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive Subaru rally cars is where the fun begins at Dirtfish. Just 30 minutes outside of Seattle in Snoqualmie, you'll get a chance to train up to 3 full days with some of the country's best instructors and be put through the high-octane rush of rally on mud, dirt, and tarmac. Get started today and call 425-888-7715 or visit us online at dirtfish.com and use code 911 for a 15% discount.
Holy Oh man, that was a hell of a ride. Go check out mymedic.com for the best first aid kits on the planet and save 15% with discount code Jim Beaver. Again, mymedic.com, discount code Jim Beaver, and save 15%. It's cheaper than a funeral.
All right, I'd like to welcome my guest to the Four Wheel Parts Down and Dirty Show Off-Road Edition this week. My good friend Ryan Arciero, who he and I have been talking off the air. Now we finally decided to hit record to this thing. But Ryan, I don't know, man. This is one of those when we decided to do this, I knew I could do long-form interviews finally. I was like, you were literally, this is episode 3. You were at the top of my list. I'm like, there's so much Ryan and I need to talk about. And I think a lot of people in the off-road industry don't know that you've done or accomplished. I'm like, I got to get you on the show, buddy.
Dude, I'm so stoked to be a part of this, and my hat's off to you. You're kicking some major butt, and I love it. Thank you for thinking of me, but it's an honor. And yeah, you know, having a family that's been involved in motorsports for 65 years in different aspects, I've seen a lot of different stuff. Obviously, off-road's my passion, just like it was for you as you were growing up. But it's just, racing in general is just you know, it is a passion. It's a sickness to an extent for a lot of us.
Well, and I think a guy like you, because I mean, you're a guy that grew up, you know what I mean? You were around IndyCars and, you know, and on the grid, you were around some of, you know, the greats, you know what I mean, as a kid and things like that. Like, you know, so it's like for you to say off-road's your passion, like, and I know we'll get into kind of your career and, you know, you've done a lot in a bunch of different motorsports, but I think that's saying something about our sport of off-road, because you're a guy who, you know, you've gone and you've seen everything else, but you still say, hey, off-road's my favorite, man. This is where I want to be.
You're not kidding, and I have, and I've been very fortunate to have been able to see different aspects of being involved and drive different aspects of motorsports, from mobiles to road racing to the off-road stuff, to obviously even further into Dakar. But to me, there's always been something special about off-road racing, because I was just having this conversation. We were testing yesterday and out in Barstow, and I got a chance to meet Jensen Button out there, and him and I were chatting for a while about the sport and about but just how incredible off-road racing is. And I was telling him, I said, what's so neat about it is the factor of the driver itself is a huge part of our sport. Now, what I mean by that is a great driver, a great driver can take an average vehicle or something that's maybe not quite the best or a little bit ill handling, and can adapt to it and still be able to go compete for a win. I'm not saying you don't need to have good equipment these days, but no matter what the classes are, a good driver has a big factor in how that vehicle gets to the finish line first. In oval racing, it's frustrating because you can be the best driver in the world, and if you can't get that car to turn left, there's not a thing you're going to do inside that car that's going to make that thing go to the front. Same thing with road racing or Formula One. Like when we were talking with Jensen, if you're not a top team, spending $400 or $500 million a year, not a chance in hell you're going to win. So I don't care what kind of driver you are. If you're at the back of the pack and you don't have a car underneath you that's going to put you to the front, then there's nothing you can do. But that's just what's cool about our sport. Our sport's so three-dimensional. It's just rad. We got so much stuff going on. You got these 40-inch tires, these trophy trucks, almost 4 feet of wheel travel. Every corner is different. People are throwing stuff at you. You got rocks, you got silt, you got rain, you got mud, you name it. It's just rad.
Yeah, well, and that's like, and not even talking about Dakar, because we'll get into that later. But you look at like something like a point-to-point Baja 1000. And you and I have both been to Gasoline Alley, the Indy 500, and teams bring their A game. And they've got these people, and here's this nice little safe garage area that's beautiful, and they've got all their signage up and things like that. And people want to talk about, oh, we've assembled a great team, and and part of me, I'm chuckling in the back of my head. I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, you look at what we have down in Baja, and we're moving armies, you know what I mean? It's from one spot to the next spot to the next spot, and it's like, you talk about they assembled a great team, and they've got a dozen people. I'm like, yeah, we got, 3-4 dozen at Baja. Some teams, we hear crazy rumors about 80, 90 people and things like that. I've never been fortunate to even be close to that, but it's crazy. And you're moving these every, 150 miles. You're doing a full pit stop, 100 miles, in a different area than you were the one. To me, it's like just remarkable, the logistics of off-road, Ryan.
It is. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, the pits aren't in the same spot every lap where the driver says, okay, there it is. There's my guys. There's lap 1. There's my guys. There's lap 2. You're taking that entire structure of what they're doing for a pit, just like you said, you're moving that thing to 150 to 180 miles, and having either a full another crew there or the same set of guys going there and being able to do exactly what they did at the first pit stop. It's set up exactly the same. All your impact guns, your fueling towers, everything imaginable to do a pit stop is now traveling. And you're right, logistics are crazy, especially for the Baja 1000. That's what you need. You need to have a good set of guys around you. They say team. No matter what form of motorsports you're involved with, you have to have a good team around you. And just with the guys in off-road, of course, we don't get the notoriety as a Formula One guys or as a NASCAR guys. But I tell you, our guys work just as hard, if not harder, on any other form of motorsports out there. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because you go into, any of the top trophy truck race shops, and I mean, they look, I've been in IndyCar garages, obviously you have, some of these top teams, I mean, they look the same. I mean, it's like a surgery center for race cars in there. It's not, I think a lot of people think off-road and they think some old greasy Jeep and a guy, in his backyard garage, and that is a big part of our sport, right? I mean, there are still, guys that are doing that, but, you look at the top teams in trophy truck and, you walk into that shop, you wouldn't see any difference that you would in an IndyCar or NASCAR shop.
No, not at all. I mean, if you take the Herb Shop, for example, it's a 50,000 square foot race facility. It's in Huntington Beach, California, and it rivals any NASCAR shop or any IndyCar shop out there. And you see the type of work that those guys are doing in there, and how busy they are, and then building cars and moving them. Kind of like just like a NASCAR. They're building a chassis, moving the chassis over to the next bay to get assembled. Same thing with this. It's pretty freaking phenomenal. And especially, we've come a long way in our sport. We really, really have. Especially the days, with Toyota, and when we had all the factory involvement. I almost think it's at even more of a high now, and even more professional now than it was back then.
Yeah, and, that's funny you say that, because I think the same thing. And, I was fortunate, from the time I grew up in the sport very much like you did. And I remember I remember in the 80s, and, you know what I mean, in the big Dodge programs. And, my dad was fortunate to drive for Bill Stropp for a few years, and, and how that all worked. And, and obviously PPI, and we can talk about Toyota and Cal Wells and Ivan and that. But, now going full circle, and then, the advent of the trophy truck in the early 90s that Sal brought and things like that. But, you fast forward, and now everything's gone independent. We don't have the factories involved and things like that. But like you said, I think we're at such a higher level now, and, and things are even so more precise. Like I think it's, like you said, it's even, I don't know, I think it's even bigger now, and things are more important than they were back when the factories were involved. And we've done this like privately and independent, because you and I both know there's a few teams that are funded by sponsors and things like that, but those are few and far between. A lot of this is just independent, private money.
It is, and you can probably count on one hand guys that are actually doing this for a living at the top level, and getting paid to do it. Unfortunately, I love to see that happen more. The money just isn't quite there yet. It is coming, and it's been happening. You have a lot of guys out there that have been working their asses off to make sure that this is a viable business. And I've been very fortunate to be able to make a living at doing this throughout the years, especially driving for factories. And but it is, to me, like, now you have like the whole social media aspect of it that they didn't have back in the PPI Toyota days. They didn't have with the Chevrolet program and Dodge. You were waiting for that ESPN show to come on, and with Speed Weeks and your ABC Wild World of Sports. You were waiting for that, and sometimes those are months removed from the actual event, or waiting for a press release to come out. That was more than likely sent in the mail.
Yeah, and it was printed in a magazine 2 months later or something.
That's exactly it. Now we have this real time social media stuff where we're getting eyes on what we're doing. And I know, Jim, even you can attest to it, because you see it with your radio show. You see this instant gratification now, and you're instantly connected with the fan base. And with us, I think a lot of them, like the millennials, are relating to what we're doing. Even though, especially with the desert racing, it is endurance racing, and so it's long periods of time, but it's action-packed for those long periods of time. And I think that's where one of the issues with NASCAR they're having is, obviously, the older fan base is leaving. And the millennials don't have the capacity to sit and watch a 3 or 4 hour race of them going left. There's just not that much. There's not, the excitement level's not there, which we do bring with the off-road racing.
Yeah, well, and not only that, but I think, like you talked about millennials and things like that, they really, in NASCAR, they don't comprehend that, 200 miles an hour going in a circle and, and things like that. But, with off-road trucks, obviously not everybody can buy a trophy truck, but everybody can take, I guess when I was growing up, it was Rangers, but now it's, whatever, your F-150 or whatever. And you can go and buy a kit, from one of these guys and put a few $1,000s, and you go out and have some fun in the desert, and that doesn't even mention, the gateway that, the Polaris RZR has caused into the industry. But, I think our sport is very much more accessible, than something like, say, NASCAR or IndyCar or, and things like that.
You're hitting that. You're definitely hitting the nail on the head, and I do believe that as well. I think Jim, I think you're totally right. Is they can quantify it because they can say they've done it. Like you said, it's not necessarily a trophy truck, but the concept of what they're doing is the same. Being able to go to the desert, go rock crawling, be able to take their vehicle out and go do something similar to what we're doing. You're right. You can't do that with NASCAR. They're not going to go rent an oval and go take their Camry around an oval. It's just not going to happen. But they can with what we're doing. They can go to Barstow. They can go on the same course that we did. They can go down to Baja. They can go on the same course that we just did. And they can take their 400 down there. They can take their Ford Raptor down there and do the same thing we just did.
Yeah. So, circling back here, let's, I want to talk about you a bit and kind of your gateway into this industry, because you grew up in motorsports. I know you and, and Bob Gordon had a special relationship. I mean, kind of take us back to the beginning, because I know, I've got pictures of me, out at the Parker 425, literally at, I think, or Parker 400 at the time, 1 month old, out there in the pits and things like that. But I mean, you kind of grew up around motorsports kind of the same way, how was your start in this? I mean, how did you grow up? I mean, because obviously there's the IndyCar side of things with, the Arciero name, and then obviously, your relationship with Bob Gordon and, and things like that. But kind of take us through the beginnings of your career and, what you remember from, your childhood.
No, it's kind of like you too. I mean, I was my dad and my uncle got involved in the off-road with my grandfather back in 1973, which was the year I was born. And so I was just like you, and I know your story, and I know how important this sport is to you, and what a mainstay it was for you as you were growing up, because you're living it, you're breathing it. And it's the same thing with me. I just always knew, like, going to the races with my dad and helping him out, helping my uncle out, going into the race shop, working on the race cars, learning how a race car is assembled and disassembled. I knew I wanted to do it. The Mickey Thompson series, my dad and my uncle were doing it at the time, and I always dreamed of doing it. And just never had the opportunity to go do it. And on the IndyCar side of things, when my grandfather was doing IndyCar racing, for me as a kid growing up, it was easy for me to go to the IndyCar races that were on the West Coast, Long Beach, Phoenix, Laguna Seca, up in Portland when they were up there. But as soon as they would make their East Coast swing, I'm in school, so it was really difficult for me to pull me out of school. So I was more susceptible to be going to the off-road races than I was to the majority of the IndyCar races. I just grew this love for our sport, and I knew I wanted to do it, and I needed to figure out how to do it. And so it was funny. Growing up as a kid, I grew up and spent a lot of time with Jimmy Johnson. My brother and I and Jimmy convinced my dad and my uncle to let us use their old Funko Class 1 car, and that they had, and put a Class 10 engine into it and go race in the Flood Series, which was down in Placer City. And so we convinced them. We took the car, we brought it over to Gary Johnson's house, Jimmy's dad, in El Cajon. And every weekend, my brother and I would go down there, stay at the house, and Jimmy, my brother, and I and Gary would work on the car and get it ready. And so the three of us, our first ever race, desert race was together with the three of us, and it was awesome. Our first outlet down there, and so Gary Johnson, Jimmy's dad at the time, was doing a lot of work for BF Goodrich, and he had one of BFG's box fans, and that went to all the pits. So that box fan was our main pit. So we already thought we were king shit at the time.
You guys are a big deal. You had a box fan, man.
We got a box fan. This is cool. Now we all slept in the box fan.
Couldn't afford hotel rooms.
But we just thought we were badass. And then we had our chase crew. So our chase crew for our first race consisted of my dad, Bob Gordon, and Ivan Stewart. So once again, obviously we are pretty cool, man. We are awesome. And Ivan brought down Linda, and they chased us. And then Bob, with his wife at the time, Sharon, and they chased us. And then my dad as well. And Jimmy started the race. And unfortunately, he rolled it not too far into the first lap. So they got the car fixed. I got in it, took off, did my lap, and my brother did the last lap. And then unfortunately, the transmission broke. So that was our first outing. And that's kind of how it all started for all three of us. And we all know where Jimmy went and how, where Jimmy's career is today. And obviously he's done a phenomenal job. But for me, I needed to continue racing. I needed to find the money to go do it. What I had a race shop. So my dad and my uncle had a full, they had a race shop at their offices. And so it allowed me a place to work on a car. I just didn't have the money, the funding to go drive. And so what I did is I just went out and started searching. I searched for guys that had a car, and then they had the money to go racing, and they needed someone to prep it. So my portion of racing was to team with somebody. So it was Kurt Vanmater at the time, had a Class 10 car, and but didn't want to work on it. I was paying somebody to work on it. So I did a deal with him. I said, I'll work on the car, I'll prep it if you can pay the bills. So that's what I did. It was 7 days a week working on that car. I had a group of friends that were awesome. Would leave work at 5 o'clock and come down to help me in the shop. And for 7 days a week, I prep a car and we go out and we go race, and that was my contribution to be able to go drive. And then I was very fortunate to do the same thing with Tim Scalzo. Tim and I, who's been around the industry for a very long time. Tim and I partnered together, and we were the guys that brought in Honda into Class 10 for the first time with the 4-cylinder engine, and with the Del Sol and the Integra and the Del Sol engine, and then from there was able to. My dad already had a really good relationship and was teammates with Bob Gordon, who was obviously one of my mentors growing up along with my dad, and Bob just got done building a new Cheneth Millennium car, and so Bob had asked me if I wanted to race that with him and my dad, and then in 1990, that was 1998. In 1988, my dad was supposed to do the Baja 1000 with Bob Gordon that year. I had already done a couple Class 1 races, but not a lot of them yet. My dad ended up having to back out of the 98,000 because my grandmother was real sick with cancer at that point. So Bob, my dad said, "Bob, why don't you have Ryan race with you?" So Bob's like, "Yeah, perfect, let's do that." So I raced the 1,000 with Bob and what we call Old Betsy now, the 2-seat Class 1 car that a lot of people in the industry know about.
Yeah.
And
iconic car.
Bob and I ended up winning. What's that?
I said iconic car. I mean, everybody. Yeah.
Iconic.
Yeah.
If you're in the industry, you know what this car looks like, and you know how cool it is. And so Bob and I started the race and did the first half to San Ignacio. We started 15th. Gave the car to Bob. We were the first Class 1 car on the road. I think we were third overall. And we ended up winning it to La Paz.
Yeah, were you shitting bricks?
That was
you started. I said you started. You had to have been shitting bricks. I mean, you're with Baja Bob Gordon and racing Class 1, and like you said, first on the road. Was there you had to have been nervous? Like, how, I can't screw this up, right?
Oh my God, I was so terrified the whole time. Bob was constantly on the phone. He didn't come to the start line because he decided to stay south and continue pre-running. So he didn't know what was going on back. And I had my guys helping us, and so we got the car finished up. We got to the start line, and in my mind the whole time I was like, I got to get this car to Bob, otherwise he's gonna wring my neck. I mean, this is my first big shot. I got to make this work. And the car ran just, flawless. That car just knows its way down Baja. And I'm like, well, I can't do any better than giving him the car first. So hopefully we can continue to stay in this. And we had one issue with the steering down towards Santa Rita, so 3/4 of the race. And Bob just kind of worked through it, and we were able to bring that thing home. We were the third car overall behind Ivan, Larry Ragland, and Bob. It was one of the most special races I've ever experienced in my life. Obviously, my first big win in racing. I had other smaller wins, but this is the Baja 1000 La Paz. Jim, when as an off-road racer, the one you want to check off your list of any race that's out there is that one.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the one. And a lot of people, it's like even Manny Arciero, who I grew up knowing and stuff. The funny thing about Manny's career is he accomplished, just about everything you possibly can. And he's got numerous Baja 1000 wins. He never actually won a Baja 1000 point to point. And I know up until his passing, that was one of the things that he always said. Like, he's like, I've never won the Baja 1000 point to point. I've only won Loop 1000s. He's like, I got countless wins of those. But like you said, there's a Baja 1000 win, and then there's a point to point Baja 1000 win. And
yes.
And you want to say a Baja 1000 win is a win, but you and I both know the point to point. There's just something special about that.
That's the one you want to know. It's funny because in 98, we all know how successful and how many races Ivan had won with Toyota. He won countless Baja 500s. He won countless Baja 1000s. But up until 1998, he had never won the point-to-point race, so that was their first big win for Toyota, and first point-to-point win of all the years they had tried. It just tells you how tough that race really is. So, which is really cool. But you're absolutely right. The point to point is what like you said, a Baja 1000 win is tough in itself. Doesn't matter if it's a loop or if it's point to point. But point to point is the special one. That's the one. That's the one you really want to check off your list. So, especially if you've been fortunate enough to win a loop race, your mind immediately goes, well, I got to win the point to point one now. I got to put that on my list. So. but yeah, I mean that was super special. I was able to race with Bob for a couple of years in both the Millennium car and with the 2C car. And once again, we brought the car to our shop, and 7 days a week I'd work on it. And that was my contribution to being able to go drive. And right after that, I was picked up by Chevrolet, and I was able to be involved in the Trailblazer program.
Yeah.
If I back up prior to that, prior to the Trailblazer program on Bob, I decided I wanted to try to do some open wheel racing. I'm like, well, you know what? This off road, I love the off road stuff, but I really want to try my hand at open wheel racing. So I went to the USAC Russell School up in Sonoma, and I did their school, did a race series, and it was a 12 race series, and I came in at the halfway point of the series, and I won 3/4 of the races, and then ended up getting Rookie of the Year and finished third in points after missing the first half. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. I want to continue to try. And so I tried to put some money together to do the Barber Dodge Pro Series at the time, which was at the time that was like the Super V Series or the Formula Atlantic. It was a stepping stone into getting into Atlantic cars, which the next step is IndyCars. And it was $200,000 to do the series that year. They tested me at Sebring, and they asked me to be a part of the series, and I had to give the ride back because I couldn't come up with $200,000. And which sounds like a lot, but it wasn't at that time too. I mean, to do an Atlantic, it was close to $1 million.
Yeah.
And then I tried to do some Atlantic racing, and I couldn't find the money. So for whatever reason it was, God called me. It would always call me back to off road. And my opportunity to Bob opened up, and then my opportunity to Chevrolet opened up, and so and then after the Chevrolet program, which ended rather quickly, which it shouldn't have, I started doing NASCAR racing. I'm like, well, let me try oval racing. A lot of success on the short tracks, won a crap ton of races, but could never find the money to take it to the next step. And then boom, Volkswagen opportunity opens up in off-road again. So back to off-road I go. and I don't, that's not a complaint by any means at all. It's just, I think it's a calling. And that's where my home's going to be. And after that, after my Volkswagen program, I'm like, you know what, off-road's where I need to be and where I want to be and where my passion and my love is. I'm staying the course. And so I kind of put everything else out of my head and just concentrated on off-road.
Yeah. Well, talking about
that's kind of my story.
Yeah. Well, and talking about, I remember too, because I remember that whole, it's funny because that era, it was late 90s, early 2000s. You and I didn't know each other, but I knew of you, and I remember pictures would pop up on the internet, and here's Ryan Arciero in an Atlantic's car, might have been a test or something. I'm like, that's rad. Like you energized me, because there was a point there where I was trying to, I was reaching out, sending proposals to, to Formula Renault teams in England and Australian supercar teams, and it was crazy because I was like, you know what, Ryan's doing this, like off-road guys can make it, you know what I mean? And I remember there was this whole time where I was in the gym and I was completely fit, I studied how Formula One car drivers trained, and it's funny, and I actually got calls back and things like that. And I think at one point I don't even know if I've ever even mentioned this on air, but I actually had a test lined up for a V8 supercar team in Australia. And we had this whole entire week scheduled because I'd never shifted with my left hand. And so they were going to go down and actually just run me around one of the tracks for an entire day, just in a street car, so I could learn to shift with my left hand before they would actually ever even test me in a supercar. And I don't even know what happened at this point. Things kind of we actually had some meetings here in the United States when they were in Los Angeles, and I don't know, but it was just funny because there's this whole era there where the internet was, and I started seeing what Ryan was doing, and I think what Nelson & Nelson had a super trucks program at some point. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't they build trucks?
Yeah, it was called the Spec Truck, and I actually did that. That was my start in oval racing with Nelson Series. Before they ended up selling the series to Irwindale Speedway, but I was fortunate enough to do it when we were traveling. So we went all around California, up and down the coast, racing in their series, and that was hard racing. That was the hardest I probably ever had to work at trying to go racing. One, working on the vehicle, two, trying to get the setup right, and three, the frustrations you had of trying to get that damn thing to turn left. So it sucks. I got your V8, the supercar deal. So I didn't know that about you, and I just think that is way cool. And it's funny how you go back thinking to yourself, like off-road once again calls you back as well. So that's like our paths are very similar with that. There's something about the sport that when the opportunity comes up, it just sucks you back, and it's not like you're fighting to get to come back at all, because you love it. That's where your heart is. But you have this desire to want to step out of that and just see if you can do other stuff.
Yeah, and it's funny because I look, and I'm 38 now, and I look and I know what I was at 20. At 20, like I was winning races in Class 8 and score and things like that, and it's like I start looking back, I'm like, yeah, I was a 20-year-old kid, and I was winning truck races in Class 8, like, and I look at these kids now, these up-and-coming kids, you go, man, that kid's 20 years old. He's winning races in, 6100 or trophy truck. That kid's the hot ticket. And then I start thinking back, I'm like, I kind of at one point might have been that kid at one point in my career. Now, like, we're way far removed. But, you start thinking about opportunities, and I hope the world for these kids, you know what I mean? And it's like, I wish social media existed, because back then, I mean, you and I, like it was literally like a lot of, email was kind of there, but it really wasn't like, it was, I mean, I was writing letters and typing letters and sending them off, and you know what I mean? And, with a stamp on them.
I was just going to say that. Yep. I was just going to say, I mean, that's what you did. I mean, that's what you had to get your pen and paper out and type it up, or lucky enough to have a computer to write it up on your computer and then stick it in the mail and hope for a response.
Yeah. That was kind of it.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And it's funny because I know you can attest to this, because you still can. You're still in this position now, which I am too. And I try to tell the younger kids coming in, because they're trying to say, how do I go find sponsors? How do I do stuff? And I'm like, first you got to get thick skin, because that door is going to close on you 99% of the time. And I know, Jim, you can attest to this.
Absolutely.
The opportunity is so far and few between. They said, but if you don't keep on knocking on that damn door, that 1% will never come to fruition. So you just got to keep doing it and take the no's and learn from those and make yourself better. So because it is not an easy task.
Well, and I tell people too, and I think, and this isn't just off road, but you and I have been fortunate, to be able to find money in this sport, and there's some others like, Rob Mack and Cameron Steele, and we've been pretty successful at finding money, in desert racing, which is always kind of, BJ Baldwin's another one. And there's quite a few, at this point, but, it's always been that thing, there's no money in off-road. But, like I tell people, and it doesn't matter, even if you're talking IndyCar or NHRA or whatever, like some of these sponsorship deals that I put together, I mean, these are conversations I had 3-4 years ago, and it literally takes that long for them to mature. And sometimes it's, and you meet these people and you have conversations, and then a year later you revisit conversations, and then maybe they're in a better point, and then you start working on a budget for 18 months down the road. And like, I think they send an email and expect a response and a check in the mail, and I'm like, it does not work that way at all. And I think,
no, God, I wish it did. And going back to those days that you put a sticker on the side of a car and you have a company that's just loving it, that was gone a long time ago. You have to be so creative now in what you do and how you generate exposure for them, and how that turns around and equates to sales for them. So you're right. It is a job in itself, and like I said, it's a frustrating one, a very frustrating one.
Yeah, and it's one of those, I think we do it because we love it, and sometimes the love-hate relationship, but, it's, I don't know, like you said, you just got to keep at it, because like you said, to get that 1%, man, you're going to fail 99 times to get that one, and it's just, you got to keep at it and just keep going.
Yeah. And that's what I see, and I know, you've had to have a ton of conversation with people or young kids coming up too. It's like, they ask you, it's like, okay, how did you do it? What did you do? And I think a lot of them are looking for an easy answer. I'm not saying all of them are. I think a lot of them are looking for okay, what's where's my shortcut to try to figure this out? And there isn't. You got to just grind it, and you hit the nail on the head. And it's not just sending an email out and just sitting and twiddling your thumb waiting for it to come back. You got to figure out how to get a relationship started. You got to be places. You got to be in front of people, and then cultivate that. You said it better, best just a little bit ago. Sometimes that takes years to actually cultivate and actually happen. Yeah. So that is totally true.
Start going true. It's like I tell people, start going to trade shows, start going to races, and literally walk and shake hands with everybody and introduce yourself. Just go go through contingency in every single booth, say hey. And I've had some literally, one of them's my good friends at Assault, the UTV aftermarket company. I walked up to them they had some mirrors that I wanted to put on one of my race cars. And I walked up and introduced myself, didn't know anybody. I knew of the company. I was talking to the owner of the company, had no idea. And I told him what I was doing. And he goes, oh, he handed me the business card. And I looked and I went, oh, you're the owner. You know what I mean? But I didn't say anything. But you never know who you're talking to. And, and things matured and things are great. We've had a couple-year relationship now. But you introduce yourself because you never know who you're talking to or what their objectives are and, or where they're going or what products might be in the pipeline that may fit a need. You just never know,
No, for sure. Or something you might do down the road after a conversation with them and what their needs are. Something might pop into your head saying, okay, I can connect the dots for them here. Let me circle back with them. And because I met somebody else 3 weeks later that can supply something for them or can connect some dots or can help promote what they're doing. So that's it. I mean, it's all connections and connecting all these dots in different aspects. And for sure, like I said, it's a lot of freaking work.
Yeah.
You know it. It's a lot of work.
Well, I want to go back. You'd mentioned the Volkswagen program, and I want to go back and talk about you and the Volkswagen program. Mark Miller, I know you guys teamed, and you guys had some crazy success for a few years in Baja, Ryan. And I don't know. I guess what is a Profi truck at this point? I don't know what we'd even quite call that thing, but but that led to Dakar. I mean, it led to some crazy, in-flight fueling system. I mean, there's like this whole era I feel like we skipped over that I want to talk about. Well, not only that, but I got to ask you, where the hell is Mark Miller at? I used to have his cell number. I don't even know if I've still got it anymore, but I'm like, that's a guy who kind of went off the grid, who had some crazy success along with you in off-road. But, I think we skipped over a whole era there. But how did that whole thing kind of get steamrolled?
I'm actually glad you brought it up because it's a big part of my career, and Mark and I are still the best of friends, and I talk to him probably every couple of weeks. Mark's still living in Arizona, and he went from Mark's got that personality where he has to figure something out and do something. If it's not racing, it's something else. And right now he's been competing on mountain bikes, and so he's been a lot of his life's been training and competing on a mountain bike to give him that sense of competition again. And I mean, he retired from the Dakar stuff. I know he wants to go race again, but for Mark too, especially after being involved in a factory-backed effort like Volkswagen and their Dakar program at that level they're at. I mean, that was Formula One for the dirt.
Yeah.
So you kind of get. I don't want to use the word spoiled, but you kind of get into used to how things are supposed to be run and how you're supposed to do stuff and how you're supposed to attack stuff. And for Mark, he's selective on what he wants to do in motorsport because it needs to be right. Otherwise, he doesn't want to waste his time. And I can appreciate that. And some people will say, well, why, if opportunity is there for something else, but why wouldn't you just do it? A lot of people don't have that opportunity. Like I said, it goes back to what you're used to, because at this point in your life and your career, only thing you want to do is win. You don't need to go say, I raced the Baja 1000 this year. When you've been doing it for 20-something years and you've been successful and won that race, the only thing that matters at that point is we're going there, we're going to go there to win. And we need to be able to have the best effort together to go do that. And that's what he wants. And but he's a nut. He loves cooking. He decided to become a chef, so he took cooking school and became a chef. And so he just cooked for him and his wife. But he's incredible at that. And so anything he puts his mind to, he succeeds with. But him and I had a great partnership. We met. We were put together back in 99, 2000 for the Chevrolet program, for the Vortex program. And him and I just grew this friendship out of that I said it still lasts 19 years later, 20 years later to today. And we decided Mark decided to buy this pro truck, and it was during the GM program, and because he wanted to start driving more and learning, perfecting his craft more. So he bought this pro truck, and the first event for that pro truck was the Nevada 2000. And Mark, they entered it in the race, and they put all the spare parts for the truck for both Trailblazers onto that truck. And then Mark, just the days he wasn't driving the race truck, he drove that truck, and just to get more seat time. And after the whole GM program went by the wayside, Mark had this pro truck now, and he's like, why don't I go race this thing in trophy truck and see what we can do? Only really at the time only the Baja races. And so then him and I started talking, and let's go do it. So we had Don Tebby, who had ran the GM program for us. Don was involved with it, doing all the logistics and planning everything and planning out the truck itself and the suspension setup. And so we we decided to go race. We're like, okay, let's do this year. We'll do Parker. We'll do the 500. We'll do the 1,000. Okay, great. Enter Parker, and this is 2003. We go enter Parker, and real small effort, and we go win. We were running second, Damon Jeffries, and he ended up breaking the truck in the last lap towards the finish, and we ended up winning in a pro truck. And we're like, okay, great. Made a couple changes to the pro truck, and we're to where it became a trophy truck at that point. Bigger fuel cell to go race the 500, and made a couple small changes, nothing geometry-wise. Bigger approach angle on the thing, so you can go into the ditches a little bit harder. And entered the 2003 Baja 500, and we ended up winning trophy truck, and should have had it overall, but we had a fuel pickup problem. The fuel cell was coming apart. And so we got it fixed, and we got a couple Class 1 cars got by us, but we ended up winning trophy truck, and I think we finished third overall. Go to the Baja 1000 2003, the Destagora year, and decided to race it again, go do it again, and Mark and I win the 2003 Baja 1000 in this truck. So we're like, okay, if you think to yourself, okay, this is easy. Anybody can do this. And so we're like, okay, the next year we were only slated to do the Baja 1000 because we were trying to find money at the time. So in 2004, Mark and I entered the Baja 1000. That year they decided to put a speed limit on us on the highway. Any highway section, they were going to track us and to a 60-mile-an-hour speed limit. So Don Tebby came to Mark and I and says, I got an idea. He goes, why don't we take advantage of the 60 miles an hour? He goes, what if we refuel on the highway? And Mark and I said, what do you mean refuel on the highway? He says, like a jet fighter, like refuel on the highway. And Don likes to joke a lot, so we took it as well, he's screwing with us. And it's like, yeah, we're really going to pull this off. And remove yourself a month or two, and all of a sudden Don shows up at my shop. He has all the parts and pieces made for this thing. I called Mark up and I said, Don's not screwing with us. He's totally freaking serious. And so we put it on the truck, took all the body panels off here in Orange County, and down the street there's a Caterpillar dealership, and they have a road that's right next to their dealership. We took it down there and we tested the system out, and the first time we did it, it worked. And we had all the refueling stuff in the chase truck, and the race truck obviously had the receptacle on it. And the plan was to do it for our first fuel stop. Is use that and go and skip a stop itself on tires and get us down towards El Arciero. Truck comes off of the goat trail onto the highway, started heading down through Trinidad, and chase truck pulls out. We didn't have any of this stuff. Nobody knew what we were doing. If anybody knew, we knew it was going to be a problem.
Yeah. It was top secret.
We'll probably stop it.
Nobody had any idea. Because I remember,
Yep, we made it a point. The only thing we told NBC, who covered the race at that point, we said, make sure you're at this mile marker at this time. You're not going to want to miss this. And so that's all we told. That's all we said to anybody. We even had the truck itself had a funnel on the back, which it almost the opposite of what it would be like for a jet fighter. Typically, they have the probe, and a probe goes into the funnel. It's coming off the back of the fueling plate. So we had it the opposite. So the funnel was on the back of the race truck, and we didn't even have the funnel on there until race morning. And we read the rule book front and back. Nothing in the rule book. There were gray areas on everything. So we knew, okay, we're going to be fine. We're not breaking any rules in the rule book. Let's do it. So end up pulling it off. We ended up going by. Scott Steinberger was right in front of us. Scott was pulled into his pit, and we went by him with the receptacle, with the truck inserted into the receptacle. And at the time, I think his guys stopped doing the tire change and were taking pictures of what we were doing. Like, what the hell is going on here? Obviously, Scott didn't like it. Scott and I laugh about it now. But Scott loses a position over at the time, and then Scott got back around Mark just after that in the bumps heading to San Felipe. But we ended up winning the race. I don't want to say it was necessarily because of that, but we ended up winning the race to La Paz that year in 2004. But the wow factor, I remember getting to the finish line, and Frank D'Angelo comes to me and says, "Did I hear correctly what you guys just did?" I said, "Yeah, you heard correctly. Wait till you see the video." So it was 99% of the people thought it was the best thing ever. Next morning, we see a red mark next to our name as far as the finishers go, and we're called into South Fish's principal's office, and they were like, "Oh shit, here we go." And so we go into there. We already have the rule book. We know what's going on. Sal has stuff highlighted, looking at Mark Miller, myself, and Don Tabby, and says, "You guys did not do this." We said, "Yeah, we did it. We did it. Absolutely. We confessed to it." And I said, "Sal, there's nothing in it." He says, "Here, what if you start reading these rules off?" He said, "I'm like, that's not how we did that. That's not what we did. We did it this way, and we have video of it to show you." He shakes his head. He knows there's nothing in there that he can pin us on. And he looks at all three of us and says, "Let me tell you something right now." He says, "From here on out, we're going to have a rule in the rule book that says you can't do this." And we all looked at him. We said, "We agree with you. You should." 100%. We don't think anybody else should do it. So the rule came into the rule book after the Baja 1000, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I remember that because there was, everybody was up in arms over it. Well, at least the competitors, right? And I just remembered, like, it was. This is the point. This was like when RDC, Race Desert, was in its golden era. And I remember there was threads, miles long on that, talking about that. It was, I don't think anybody ever, remembers so much that you guys won the race. I think they just remember the in-flight fueling system.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Because you figure it's never been done in any form of motorsports ever. I don't care what form of motorsports you've been involved with, and it never will be again. So it's just trying to think outside the box a little bit. And that you're right. People that aren't going to remember we won that race, and maybe that's very let's look at the history books. But they're sure as shit going to look at the videos, and the videos are still getting comments to this day. And it's funny because on Race Desert, every once in a while you'll see that thread pop back up again about refueling on the highway. So it's pretty. I like it. It's pretty rad.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, it just, I think there's moments in off-road history that are going to go down and people will always remember. And for, and that moment right there, like you said, there was a one race window. It got banned after that, it was immediately exactly. It wasn't like they even waited. It was like Score posted on their website, "All right, starting effective today, this is not going to happen."
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happened to Tomo Bedosola. If anybody remembers, when they were working on the front of his truck going down the highway at one of the races going down after Portecidas, and the rule had already been in place, and they had someone in the back of the pickup truck working on his front light bar, I think, at the time, going down the highway, and obviously he got a big penalty because of it.
Yeah, I remember that. There was a guy, reaching over the bed of the truck. He was riding in the bed of the truck or something and adjusting, like, the front of Tavo's truck. And you said, nobody should be doing this, but you guys saw a loophole and you exploited it. And not that it's you guys had done your homework. At that point, it was.
We did. We did. We talked to the military about it. Got as much information as they would give us about the safety of doing it. Static electricity. We were pulling a copper ground wire on the ground. There were three people in that chase truck, and all three of them were buckled in. No one had to get out of the chase truck. The driver was driving. The person in the right hand seat was operating a joystick that operated we nicknamed it the bazooka, but it was the actual probe. And the probe could move up and down, and he was guiding the probe with the joystick. And then the guy in the back seat pulled the lever from his seat that we brought around to the back, which opened up the pressurized tank in the back that fed the fuel. And so nobody left the vehicle. Everyone was buckled in, and so we looked at of course, the last thing we wanted anybody to get hurt. And if you look at the video, you don't even see you only see any fuel spilling. There's less fuel spill there than there is any pit you do. Stationary pit. So we went through everything and looked everything up and down to make sure this was going to be a safe deal. So for sure.
Yeah. It was just, I don't know, that whole era there. I feel like there's an era there of trophy truck, because you had the early 90s when South created trophy truck, and up through Baja 2000. Basically, you had the Trailblazer program. You had obviously Ivan's program. Everything kind of ended, and it was like there was this new, this new era of unlimited, truck desert racing that happened after the Baja 2000. And I think, you and Mark and your program and Ashley and Smith and the Durlast truck, there was like Brian Collins. There was just, the Herps had, their trucks. There was just that era there that was just it was really, really special. I mean, shoot, at that point in time, I think it was 03, and I raced a Class 8 truck and trophy truck, and I think at one point, like, I was sitting top 2 in points in a Class 8 truck and trophy truck midway through the season, and there was just like this weird era there, you know what I mean, where there was about 10 or 12 of us actually racing consistently in trophy truck, and it was before these massive numbers, and it was just, I don't know, you guys, like, to me, you were one of the definitive parts of that era, and just that whole program, like, I feel like the sport was kind of refining its way, you know, at that point in time.
I agree, and agree 100%, because we were still at a point that the trophy trucks, you know, there were still some reliability issues to them to be able to drive them hard and fast. You know, the Class 1 cars were reliable. A lot of them were reliable at that point. That's why you were tending to see a lot of the Class 1 cars winning overall too, because the reliability was there. Not that they were faster than the trophy trucks, but they were more reliable. And so we had that same area you're talking about. We had some reliability issues over there too. And we had this, you know, this trophy truck that we made really reliable. Had lower horsepower, so it wasn't hard on the drivetrain. And that was what was able to get that truck to the front. Is one, it can run a good pace in certain races like the 500 and 1,000, and in the technical stuff, it can run at any trophy truck pace at all. But as soon as you get into bumps, it would get killed. So we knew that was our Achilles heel. We just had to get through it and then make up our time everywhere else. But we had a reliable package, and it was just taking an advantage at that time of having a reliable package. Nowadays, it's funny because you're not settling into a pace anymore in trophy truck. You got to run. You got to go. And
go time.
Someone else is, and the reliability is there.
Yeah, no, and that's. You know, I think you're right. That's what's really blown my mind about trophy truck at this point in time, because, you know, races are being separated by seconds, Ryan. And I mean, it's, you know, pit stops. We're talking guys are practicing like they would NASCAR pit stops, because, you know, 2 or 3 extra seconds in the pits actually could cost you a race nowadays. And I think
you're right.
The level of racing we're at in trophy truck is just, it's mind blowing to me right now. You know, just the technology in the trucks, one, but just how fast and reliable and, you know, and finely tuned that the teams have become, you know?
No, you are right with that. It goes back to what you said about the pit stop. If you're a couple seconds longer than somebody else, it may be a fact that someone gets around you. Now you're talking about track position, and right now track position is a huge premium. You know, if one guy holds you up at all, you're going to be screwed. One flat tire, you get screwed now. I think we had, you know, San Felipe, which was, you know, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. The first 5 guys are within 5 minutes of each other. I mean, Andy and I were a minute 50 off after 350 miles of some of the worst course we ever had. That's just wild to me. It really is. So it is. It's a testament. I mean, these trucks are so phenomenal nowadays, and they're reliable, where it's allowing the drivers to pick up the pace where you have to. You have to run it close to on edge. It's like you're not settling into just a decent pace and waiting to see what's happening. You got to go and you got to run, because there are guys who are going to, and they're going to clean it, not have any problems, and you're going to be left out in the dust.
Yeah. Well, how have you? I mean, obviously, you're one of the guys. You've been through multiple eras of trophy truck racing, and not that I'm trying to age you. I just think you started so young in your career. You started so young in your career that you've seen. You know, there's a few guys, you and Rob Mack and you know, Robbie Gordon's been able to see quite a bit. You know, and I know those guys have you clipped by, you know, quite a few in years at this point. But like you've seen a lot. You know, and I think where do you think we're at right now? I mean, because, you know, obviously you've got a truck and you're part of a program that, you know, we saw at San Felipe. You guys can win on any given weekend if the cards lay in your favor. You know, where do you think's next for this sport, Ryan? Because I mean, it's, you know, we start hearing about, you know, Bryce's truck and these crazy rumors of a $2 million build on that all-wheel drive truck he's got now, and I don't know, man. It's just, to me, where do you think we're at, and where do you think this crazy industry's going?
It's a great question, and I get asked the four-wheel drive question quite a bit. And you know, I've been fortunate. I drove one of the Mason four-wheel drives, and in testing on a Barstow, and was thoroughly impressed at how that thing reacts and how it goes on the graded roads and in the sand washes. to me, I was telling Neil Mason. Neil Mason was riding with me at the time. And everyone I've told about the vehicle, I said it's like driving a Porsche at Laguna Seca. It is like glued to the road. You get into the sand wash and you can point the thing and go far left to far right without even blinking, and the thing can apex the corners. It's just wild. In the straight on bumps, it's no faster or no better than the two-wheel drives, in my opinion. But the thing we're looking at right now is just simply look at the two-wheel drive versus the four-wheel drive. Is obviously that the four-wheel drives are still having some reliability issues, which is big. They're developing these systems. Everything on the shock loads that we're putting these things through is insane. So they're trying to work out the transfer cases and the front diffs, the front CVs and axles and the hubs to try to take those shock loads and the increased temperatures. And but even when the four-wheel drives are running right now, you don't see, and this is just my perception of it, it's not like the four-wheel drives are blowing the two-wheel drives out of the water when everything is good and they're not having any problems. We haven't seen that yet. That doesn't mean we're not going to see it, but as of right now, that's not happening. So to me, except for like a qualifying loop, I still don't see a disadvantage to running a two-wheel drive right now. I think that will change as we get into the next 2, 3, 4 years from now, especially when the reliability issues get worked out. And the problem is these guys are spending a lot of money to get them to the point where reliability issues go away. And I think what it's going to do is it might force everyone to start looking at the four-wheel drive route, which is going to suck because it's just going to add more cost to everything. Yeah. As we talked about, it's like prepping a trophy truck and then throw a Class 1 car prep on top of it because you got that whole front transfer case, diff, and CVs and axles up front as well. So it's a big cost increase. But I think everyone's thinking that's going to be the future of trophy truck is a four-wheel drive, but I don't think it's quite there yet from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, it's like, things have evolved, and it's like now I think, all-wheel drive's a big thing, and, whether it ultimately pans out or not, well, I think we're still waiting to see, but we've got to the point, I mean, like with tires, I don't see them getting any bigger. It's like with certain things, I think we're going to find small things. I think gearboxes, we're going to find a little bit there that are going to make trucks faster. I think with braking, brakes could probably get a little bit better in trophy trucks, and so I think we're going to find little bits here and there, but I think those leaps and bounds that we saw in the past, like I just don't know that we're ever going to see those again,
No, and I agree with you. We're making small steps now. You bring up a great point. There's still, to me, there's still a lot of improvement in suspension too. But I don't think it's going to be like a huge leap. It's going to be an evolution of what we have now, and just making it one step better. So now, if you look at now compared to 5 years from now, or 6 years from now, 7 years from now, that'll be a big leap in what suspension is doing from now to then. But for us to get to that point is going to be real small steps to get there. And I said, I think there's still a lot to be had with suspension and getting forward bite out of these things. So that's what, like with the trophy truck now, like with a two-wheel drive at least, is you kind of fight, especially with these engines with the 8 stacks in it, is the power band is it's almost like an on-off switch a little bit, and you got to monitor that because you're just going to start roasting the rear tires. And you need these things to last because you want to start stretching the fuel out a little bit more. And your rear tires in a two-wheel drive are your Achilles heel a little bit as far as getting to the point where you still have traction on them. So when you start getting more forward bite and you start getting the wheel spin less, that's going to come into geometry and suspension and getting all that stuff to work right. So to me, coming off of a corner and going through a corner are way more important than going straight through the bumps. Because if you look at, other than the San Felipe race, you look at what's in front of us now, the Baja 500, the Baja 400, and the Baja 1000. There's a lot of corners, and if I can maximize my corner speeds in and out, then and I can really, really shine. I'll give up a little bit of the bumps if I have to, because that's not where the big time is.
Yeah, well, in talking about trophy truck technology, I got to bring up, because I know sitting in your garage, you happen to have this amazing Volkswagen trophy truck that I think never quite got its due, Ryan. I think a lot of people always wonder, what if, and I know at one point you had to swap the engine out because you were saying it took like an engineer flying over from Europe to actually start the thing or something. I mean, what's the status of that truck? I mean, how fast was this thing? Give us a lowdown, because, like I said, that was the truck where, as a fan of off-road, like it's always what if, and I know you as a driver and actually own the truck, you always wonder probably what if,
I completely agree. So we had with our partnership with Volkswagen of America and Volkswagen Motorsport in Germany, they forged a partnership with Audi Sport, which Volkswagen owns Audi anyways. When we were building this thing, there's a desire to want to go compete, because they already had the Dakar program, and that was already in full swing. But there was a desire to want to do the off-road stuff here in conjunction with what they were doing in Dakar. But obviously, what we need to accomplish in trophy truck here, you can't build the Dakar car. It wasn't going to work, and you saw that with them entering it in trophy truck for the Baja 500. I think it was in 2007 when they brought those over, and competed with them. And they can't run that pace. That's not what they're designed to do. But we can't take a trophy truck and go run Dakar either, because it's not designed to do that. It's not designed to go through the sand dunes. So when we came up with the concept of the not the Trailblazer, but the Touring, it was based on what we had done with the Trailblazer and our Trailblazer program, because all the major players were somewhat the same. And Trevor Harris, who designed the Trailblazer, also designed the Touring. And we had to find a power plant that was going to get us enough horsepower to be able to compete in trophy truck. And the only thing in Volkswagen's arsenal was with Audi, and it was the V12 diesel they were running in Le Mans, because there was a desire at the time to promote their diesel technology. And so that Le Mans engine was we would try to get the horsepower and torque numbers from them, and that was difficult in itself. Try to get the prints for it so we can design it into it, and that was difficult in itself. We were finally able to get all the pieces of the puzzle together, and they brought the engine over here. And you're right. Once we got everything in, the engine looked like something out of a spaceship. It was freaking wild. It was purpose-built engine that they won many of the 24 Hours of Le Mans with the Audi sport cars. And so anytime when the engine came here, 2 engineers from Audi would be with it, and at all times, and they would bring the ECU with them. So we couldn't even, when we get the engine ready to start, we couldn't even start it until they were present. It took about an hour and 10 to an hour and 15 minutes of pre-warm-up procedures just to get the thing started. So it was like a rocket in a launch pad.
Yeah.
We had to go through all these technical, every fluid had to be at a certain operating temperature. So there's preheaters, and it was just freaking wild. And so when we first tested this thing, we only ran it at about 60 to 65% power of its max power. Not because the truck wouldn't use 95% or 100% of it, just because the components would. We were breaking ring and pinions because of how much torque this thing has, and it's not that we had a weaker ring and pinion than they would in the Le Mans car. The biggest difference is the torque load that an off-road truck sees compared to a road race car is astronomical. Not even the same ballpark. So we were breaking ring and pinions left and right at 65% power. So we needed to be able to go compete. And the goal for the first race, it was a 3-year program. The goal for the first race, and Volkswagen Motorsport in Germany told us, is, I don't care where you finish, you are not to win, and you have to finish. Those were the only 2 things that they told us. And the reason being is like, well, why don't they want you to win? Is Volkswagen wants to be respectful coming in. They don't want to come in full force with all this factory back effort and just try to go smoke everybody out of the gate. They want to build respect, and they want to build the program into succeeding. And but you have to finish. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That car has to cross the finish line. So that was our goal for that first race, is to cross the finish line. We went through 2 wing and pinions, I believe, a transmission, but we got it to the finish line. Then we started doing some development. Turned the power up to about 95%, went out to Borrego, down San Felipe, and we spent a week down there. And the furthest we can go on this engine on a ring and pinion was 35 miles. It just tells you the amount of torque that this thing was putting out. 35 miles out of the best ring and pinions money can buy, X-Track and Gearworks ring and pinions. We went through 6 of them. I said the furthest was 35. Most of them were about anywhere from 19 to 25 miles.
Wow. That's insane.
So, going back to your question about the potential, we were dying to see what the potential of this thing could be once we got everything figured out. We had some fixes we were ready to do. Unfortunately, the guy who was in charge of marketing, where all of our money came from Volkswagen America, left. A new marketing guy came in and didn't like motorsport, like soccer. Redirected all of our money for the tour program to soccer program shut down. Yeah. So that was a big bummer. We had 20 guys here full time working on this program. We built a second chassis, and we were gonna compete with two vehicles, and all that went by the wayside. So everything sat here. The engine went back to Audi, and the guy. By the way, too, and I know we're getting long here, but the guys at Audi, when they would come over here, they would take pictures. They were blown away and loved every bit of off-road racing. They would go back, show pictures to everyone at Audi Sport at the workshop, and there was a list of guys that wanted to come out and come help after they saw everything. They just were in love with our sport. So it just goes to show you how cool it is. What a cool sport we really do have, because people are watching from all around the world.
Yeah, and that's what's funny.
And these are guys. And these are guys working on factory-backed efforts for Le Mans. I mean, that's just rad stuff. But they want to come out and do what we do.
Yeah. And that's funny that you say that. And I know you've been an ambassador for our sport, globally. And I've been fortunate, especially with StarCar, to bring in who we did. But I can go to the Indy 500, I can go to NHRA, and here you are, you're talking with these guys who have won and competed at the Indy 500. They know you race a trophy truck. That's what they want to talk about. They want to talk about off-road. Same with NHRA. You go there, and here's guys that, running, an eighth mile or 1,000 feet in, 3 seconds or whatever. And it's,
Yep.
It's crazy. They just want to talk about trophy trucks. And I'm like, no, what you do is badass. They're like, no. Let's talk about Baja.
Keep talking. And Jim, isn't it wow? Like when you do get the same thing, you almost feel bad talking so much about it, because you feel like you're, okay, am I overstaying my welcome here talking about trophy truck? Yeah. But you're right. They just want to know more and learn more about it. They're so intrigued.
Yeah, and that's it. Like you said, you almost feel guilty because you're like, am I talking about myself in the sport too much? We should be talking about you. And it's funny, but it's just
exactly.
It's like we've got the sport that's like mystical or something. I don't know. It's just funny. But.
I said it earlier too. And I truly believe this. Our sport is very 3-dimensional. It's just wow. I mean, it's almost like 3 and 4D. It's just you can just see this in your head, and there's so many cool moving parts to what we do that I think that make it interesting and make people want to learn more about it.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because as a trophy truck guy, like I look at Indy 500 and NASCAR drivers, and I have the utmost respect for those guys. But you walk into a room and they know what you do, and they have a respect for you, which is weird for me, because I'm sitting here and and I know all these guys on a personal level, but still, it's like it's like you with Jimmy Johnson. You still there's a bit that you're like, man, this guy's a badass. You know what I mean? Like you're like, wow, hail to you,
sure.
But it's like they still like there's that cross respect, and I think that's one thing I love about the sport of off road is even people outside of it that don't understand, they know that they kind of have an idea of of what it takes to run at a high level and in an unlimited truck in the desert, and there's just that instant respect there.
Great, you're exactly right, and I think the thing that's helped us more than anything with our sport, it's not the television, because to me that's too far removed, but with social media coming on the way it did, and us being able to get, like I said, we do have a gem of a sport, but it's like, how do we get the information out to these people? These people are starving to learn more about it, or the people that don't even know it's a cool sport yet, but once they see it, they're like, they're immediate fans. It's like, how do you do that? And social media has been a huge part of being able to get over that hurdle. And I think we're just on the ground level of making it even better, especially now that we have live streaming and like it's so hard to get information about what we're doing out to the masses. And even now, even with what we got, you're asking for more. It's like, I want more. I want to see more live footage. There's one camera. Do you have a second one? Can I see more of this? And I think as we grow, when we do more, and people can learn more about what we do, especially like with what you're doing as well. and we get that word out, the sport's just going to continue to be on an upward swing like it is now. And I think we're just scratching the surface right now. I really do.
Yeah. Well, one last question before we let you go, Ryan, and this is just me out of personal curiosity, because you've done, like you said, you've done open wheel racing, you've done, the NASCAR stuff, obviously trophy truck, Dakar. The one thing we've never talked about, you ever had the opportunity to do any short course, or has that ever been anything that has interested you? I mean, I know you as an off-road guy, everybody wants to race Crandon at least once in their career, right? I mean, has that something that's ever, like, you've had that itch you needed to scratch?
You know what? I have, and we went back to the beginning of our conversation about wanting to do the Mickey Thompson series. I used to dream about being able to do that, and I loved every aspect of it. And like I said, unfortunately, I just never had the opportunity. When things started coming online for me, the series was done, and so I always had the desire. And I was actually fortunate enough with Oakley. Oakley was helped me get involved with doing. I did a Pro 2 race out in Las Vegas. And I rented one of Steve Barlow's trucks, the one that Ricky had drove for him with Red Bull way back in the day, and I was so pumped. I got all of I got 30 minutes of testing at Glen Helen with Steve in the truck. That was my first time in it, and you're starving for more, but that's all. We didn't have a lot of money to do anything, so like, okay, that's it. Let's go to the race now. Unfortunately, they had a mixture of rain and just crap dirt, and so every practice session got canceled. So they started by points, which obviously I had none, so I started in the back for both races, but the TV race was the second day. So I'm like, man, I don't have a second set of panels. So I got to be able just to get to the first race. I think I finished like 8th in the first race, not pushing it real hard, but also learning. And the track was just so snotty and crappy. And then got to the second race, and all the panels still on it. Once again, I just had a crap track, no practice, and started dead last again. So I started again based on points, and took off and got my way, worked my way all the way up to. Prior to this, I had on the practice lap, or on the warm-up lap before the green flag, I spun out twice. So I think because it was so snotty and I was just offline a little bit. So I'm like, oh, I'm off to a great start here. And green flag drops. I worked my way all the way up. I think I was 4th or 5th. And I remember Ricky leading it at that time. And the competition yellow came out, and I wasn't quite up to date on what that meant. And I didn't know you raced back to the yellow to the start finish line. I just kept on seeing yellow flags come out, so I slowed down, and 4 guys went by me. So got going again, and I think I ended up finishing 6th. I think there was at that time, I think we had 12 trucks for that race. So that was the extent of it, and I just could not find the funding to do it anymore. I wanted to do so bad, and I would love to go to Crandon and go do that and put that on my bucket list. But I just haven't had the opportunity. So I love the head-to-head racing. I think it's really cool, and I admire those guys that are doing it.
Yeah, I could see you with your pavement background, with what Robbie's doing with Stadium Super Trucks. Like, I could see you jumping in one of those and having a good time with, especially at one of these events like Long Beach or something. Just with knowing what you know about, pavement racing and road racing and stuff like that. I think that could be some fun.
I think it'd be a blast. I drove one of those trucks when Robbie first built them out of Glen Helen, and had a blast doing it. And it's never aligned with my schedule. So, and I know Robbie, I think he found his calling with those things on the road race track. In front of the people like at Long Beach and like at Austin. I mean, those people are in Australia. Those people are freaking loving it. The Australians, the supercar guys are in awe. And the fans are in awe with those things. So he's done a great job with it.
Yeah, and and I think that's a good way to go full circle on this. But talking about your career and my career and Robbie's career, and he started that out, and everybody thought it was going to be the second coming of Mickey Thompson, series. But it's kind of he struggled, he stumbled out of the box, but he found his footing. And if you would have asked him back 6-7 years ago where he thought Stadium Super Trucks would be, it wouldn't be nearly what it is today. But it's one of those things where you live, you learn, and you move on, and you adapt, and and you find out what works.
I agree. I think his vision was to be back in the Mickey Thompson days and just to kind of attach himself to the Supercross stuff and go up to the stadiums like the Mickey Thompson. And he had a huge amount of success in the Mickey Thompson days. So he knew that. He knew the crowds, how the crowds were for all the Mickey Thompson races, and I think that's where he envisioned it. And I think when he stumbled upon doing this on I don't know if Long Beach was his first I think forte with it, and to seeing the reaction and then taking a full turn on where this needed to be and where his niche was for these things, my hat's off to him. That's not so easy, especially when you have a dream and a vision of continuing to go down one road and saying, okay, we need to shift gears here. That's not working, but this is, and that's pretty cool in itself.
Yeah, completely agree. But Ryan, I mean, this was a ton of fun, buddy. I think I learned a bit about you today, but I don't know. I could just shoot the bull on off-road talk, all day long with you, buddy. But
we're talking anytime we talk about racing, or we talk, it's funny because I tell people, I said there is no Betty Ford clinic for what we do. It is, and I don't care what form of motorsports you're in. It's addicting, and it's sometimes it's a bad disease.
Yeah, well, like you said, Nora 1000 coming up. I know there's, you've got my dad who hasn't raced in. I don't know, it's probably been a decade since my dad was raced, and he's sitting here with a 1979 in the garage going, I got to take that thing to Nora. He's like, I don't know you'd call that coming out of retirement, but there's still always that itch if you're an off-road driver, You
need to, you do. My dad does one desert race a year since he's been retired from it, and he looks forward to this race every year. So you need to push your dad in going to do it, because it is one of the most fun races we do all year long. And the camaraderie, they do just such an awesome job. I think Marty Fioca coined it as the happiest race on earth, kind of like going after Disneyland. But it really is. I mean, everyone has so much fun. All the old guys go to bench racing again from all those years, and it's just, you got to push them, and you got to do it too. Get it on the list to be able to do for the future.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like my dad, he it's funny just to be a fly on the wall. And like my dad, I took him. He raced short course for a lot of years, with Riverside and, and the Coliseum and some of that stuff. And he'd always wanted to go to Crandon. He always wanted to race it, and he never did, just because he was, from the West Coast. And, so I took him back there to Crandon with me last year. And you want to talk about like a kid going to Disneyland for the first time or something. His glow, I mean, and you got guys like Walker and Kurt LeDuc and Mark McMillan that go back there every year, and you want to talk about it's like a reunion for these guys where they just sit around, drink beer, and talk old war stories. And it's one of those where my dad's like, every year, I got to go back. We've already got our house booked on the lake for this year for the 50th. But I see Nora being the same thing for him. Like he's like, well, I know what I'm doing for Labor Day weekend for the rest of my life, and I see like Nora would be the same thing,
Exactly, and to me, that I love looking at my dad's face when we're down there, and how much fun he's having. He's away from work. He's back in his element. I said he does it once a year, and I'm sure it's the same thing with your dad, especially. I mean, this sport's been his life too. So to me, that I like watching that. I think it's just so rad.
Yeah, and it's funny because you say that, you see your dad's face, and I see my dad, pretty much on a daily basis, but there's something about, that twinkle in his eye, and you only get that certain times, and it's where they've got not a worry in the world. You know what I mean? It's just that racing twinkle in their eye, and it's like something special to see that,
No, for sure. Absolutely. I agree. So get it on the list, push them. Let's get that car out of there and go.
Yeah, definitely, man. We're getting on that for 2020 for sure. But
good.
Fun catching up, Ryan.
I wish you all the best of the show too. And I said you've done a phenomenal job. I got a lot of respect for you. I know how hard you work at this, and it doesn't come easy by any means. But just keep digging, man. You keep growing this stuff. We appreciate it on our side.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Ryan. And that was Ryan Arciero. Man, I got to tell you, I've done a lot of interviews in my career. That one's got to be one of the most favorite interviews I've ever done. Funny, I did a Q&A on Project Action a couple of weeks ago, and that was one of my questions. What's some of your favorite interviews you've ever done? I can tell you right now, Ryan Arciero, that is definitely one of them. So thank you guys for tuning in to the show today, 4 Parts Down and Dirty Show Off-Road Edition, powered by Polaris RZR. Big thanks to all of our partners in the show. 4 Parts, obviously, Polaris RZR, General Tire, Vision Wheel, MyMedic.com, Gibson Exhaust, Dirtfish, MotoShield Pro. Everybody that supports us, coupon code at Dirtfish is JB Dirtfish for 15% off. It's Jim Beaver at MyMedic for 15% off. Give me a follow at Jim Beaver 15 on social media, and go and hit that subscribe button over there on iTunes to both this show and Project Action. And if you subscribe to the show, you're going to get the national show in that same feed as well. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you got any guest suggestions, man, for this show, who do you want me to interview? Off-road people, hit me up. Let me know. I would love to hear your guys' suggestions on you and off-road. We should get dialed in for an interview right here on 4 Wheel Parts Down and Dirty Show Off-Road Edition. So hopefully you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time right here. Same place, same time, and I don't know, same spot, I guess. I don't know. We lost my luster here at the end of the show. But anyways, you guys have a great week. We'll see you next time.
4WP is more than a store. We're truck and Jeep experts and have been for over 50 years. From wheel and tire upgrades to full custom builds, 4WP has you covered. Whether you want to order the best parts online or shop in store, do the work yourself, or get it done by a pro, all roads lead to 4WP. Do your rig right. Shop online or find your store at 4WP.com.